Well, despite Lesufi's optimism, some opposition parties in Gauteng are not convinced that an inquiry is the right course of action. Build One South Africa says that a full criminal investigation is the only way that justice will prevail. ActionSA meanwhile has said there's no need for an inquiry at all when the real culprit or the people to blame for the crisis in the inner city is government. For more on this, let's speak to the ActionSA Gauteng leader, Funzi Ngobeni. A very good evening to you, Mr. Ngobeni. You're joining us by phone tonight because, as luck would have it, a load shedding, stage 6 tonight, making it impossible for you to connect via video link. But as things stand, so you're not big fans, as ActionSA, of this inquiry. Do you think there's anything positive that could come from the process?
No, we don't think so. In fact, I think South Africans have gotten very tired of these commissions of inquiry that do not produce any results. And from our side, we feel that it's another move by the Premier to try and pull some gimmicks and some PR stunts. And it's quite unfortunate. I don't think we'll be able to get anything. We all know what happened. We all know that what has been happening in the city of Johannesburg and many other metros and cities around the country. So the focus should be on really taking back our municipalities, taking back our cities from the criminal syndicates that are operating in these buildings. And that should be a concerted effort, very consistent, and it must also be coordinated, because it's not only the police that can win the battle here. We need all law enforcement agencies, including your Home Affairs and your DPI, so that we can be able to really clamp down on what is happening in these buildings. So I don't think the Commission really will be able to assist us.
One of the things this inquiry would do is that it would look, for example, at the prevalence of the issue of the hijacked buildings in the inner city. As things stand, how accurate is the available data? And can we really, as you're saying, take back the inner city from criminals when there isn't a clear idea of just how big a problem we're dealing with here?
Tembekile, a simple exercise of going into the city of Johannesburg and meeting with officials of the group forensic unit. There is a sub-unit there that was responsible for hijacked buildings. It was called problem buildings. So, and that team managed to gather all the information that this commission will require. I guess you will find the same in Tshwane, in places like Ekurhuleni and other municipalities. Officials have already done the work. There is work that documents and information that if they want to have it, they can be able to access it. I don't think really spending all the money that is going to be spent on commission will be able to take this country forward. We need decisive action. The other day I heard that the Public Works Department, the National Department, is also going to embark on some kind of a program to reclaim. So you can ask yourself whether is the left hand, talking to the right hand, or is this government really confused and not knowing where they should start?
But there's also a sense that when it comes to, let's say, the collation of data or information around existing hijacked buildings, just in the inner city alone, that as soon as, let's say, you've come up with a tally, another one is taken precisely because there aren't enough safeguards in place to prevent a further spread. So given that sort of situation, is it even possible to completely arrest and eradicate this problem?
Look, I think in 2017, 2018, when I was the MMC under the presidency of the mayorship of Mr. Herman Mashaba, there was a concrete plan. There's documents there at Johannesburg Property Company in the city of Johannesburg that will demonstrate the plan that was put together in ensuring that we can reclaim the inner city of Johannesburg. And we were not only focusing on the inner city, we were focusing even on areas like Orange Grove. We were focusing on abandoned factories around Alexandra and here also in the inner city, Windsor and other places. So there is a plan that municipalities have that needs to be activated. Part of that plan, Tembekile, was to involve the private sector because government alone will not be able to win this battle. In fact, government is broke as we speak. We are borrowing from outside on regular basis. So we are unable to even maintain our debt levels. So we have to work with the private sector, bring them in so that we can be able to turn back the inner cities around our country. So I think that it's really really a wasteful exercise that Pangeza Lesufi is embarking on. He needs to be called to order, but I see that there's already announced and there's going to be terms of reference. It's quite unfortunate that it has gone to that level, but we need to then hold them accountable throughout this process.
And there will be accountability, I suppose, between or through the processes in the Gauteng legislature, etc. But I want to hear more about private sector involvement in dealing with the issue of hijacked buildings. As you said yourself, it spreads way beyond the inner city. We see it there because it manifests in housing for people who are put into sometimes what would have been an office, a flat, meant to house maybe 1 or 2 people, but then would have 10 or more living in there at a time, as we've been hearing. But what then would be required of the private sector? What would it do to help deal with the problem?
The private sector was already moving into the inner city. In fact, many of the buildings around the inner city that have been turned around have been turned around by private sector. There's J. Palmer that operates in the inner city. There's many others that are also operating in the city that we're partnering with the city in turning around the inner city. So we need to invite more of them. When we left in 2019 in the city of Johannesburg, close to about 150 buildings were already released into the private sector. All that was required was for the process to be taken forward and for inner city to be turned into a construction site. That was unfortunately abandoned when the ANC took power after Mr. Mashaba left. So there is a template. The private sector, when they come in, all we have to do is to give them conditions, because this is our property, these are properties of government. We need to make sure that the interest of government, the interest of our people are taken care of.
And on interest of people, Mr. Ngobeni, just pardon me because we're almost out of time. When you say interest of people, one of the issues that have often been raised with developments or fixing, shall we say, the inner city has been that what ends up happening when the private sector comes in, because they ultimately want to make a profit, right? Apartments, etc., developments are priced out of the range of the people who desperately need to live in places such as Marshalltown because they earn little but work in the city and would like to be in an area where they're able to maybe take 1 taxi instead of 2 or 3 to get to work, or if possible walk to work. So there's also that aspect. How would we work around that to make sure that people are able still, or we don't basically kick the poor out of the city?
Yes. Absolutely, and that is also one of the things that we had actually looked at. I mean, we are saying that we give conditions to the private sector, and one of the conditions is to ensure that when they develop these properties, that it caters for the poor as well. You know, that we don't leave the poor outside. It caters for the students who are the residents in the inner city, as we know, with universities and TVET colleges around the inner city. So they must not be left behind, and that was one of the conditions. But also one of the conditions that we were putting in place was to say the developers must then leave the skills behind, meaning that people need to be trained, and so that they can be able to then, after the development, can be able to go somewhere and make a living. So those are some of the conditions that you can attach to all these agreements that we'll be making with the private sector, and ensuring that the interest of government and interest of the residents it's taken care of.
Mr. Funzi Ngobeni with ActionSA, the ActionSA Gauteng leader. Good to have your time tonight on the News at Prime. Thank you so much.